It's an enormous privilege, particularly for somebody coming from a small country, a country that usually is not known for exporting good political news. So in that sense, it's humbling, but it's also a great responsibility. Girls throughout the world, but particularly in my country, continue to be underrepresented, undervalued, discriminated. And I've been thinking about all the girls who, despite all the odds, are stubborn and brave enough to keep marching. And I've been thinking about their mothers raising them also, despite all the odds, and supporting them on the path to independence. So in that sense, it's a great privilege. And I also was thinking about my own background and the fact that I come from a line of strong women, but who weren't privileged as I am to be here today. And as I mentioned last night, my grandmother never went to school. She was an illiterate woman who taught herself later on in life how to read and write. And in that sense, to achieve that in 2 generations, to be here standing in front of hundreds of amazing women throughout Europe, it's a privilege and responsibility. I think discouragement starts from the early age, and the expectations we impose on girls are different than the expectations we have from boys. For a lot of girls, they were taught to see ambition as a dirty word. Women are accused of ambition. They're not celebrated for their ambition, but they're accused of ambition. And sometimes women, unfortunately, believe that ambition is something that they should be perhaps ashamed of. So I do perceive myself as somebody who climbed a ladder to a certain position of power, and that my responsibility is to hold that ladder, hold it tight for other women and give them a hand to climb it together with me. Well, obviously knowledge is everything, but besides that, I think something desperately needed for women in politics is confidence. Confidence in what they're advocating for, and sometimes there is a lot of work done behind the scenes by the women, by volunteers, by young volunteers, by people working in the headquarters, in offices, administrative work. And by the time they run for the office, they climbed every step of the way, whereas for men, often they nominate themselves or run for office as the first time experience, political experience of their life, and the sense of entitlement sometimes that they were unfortunately taught to have is a winning ticket for them. You realize a lot of the experiences, no matter our personal backgrounds or the nationality, are very much similar, and to see that we have a shared point of reference, referential experience, is very encouraging and very important to me, to know that when I wake up in the morning and wonder how to get out of bed and how to perform that fight another day, to know that there are women going through the exact same experience that morning throughout Europe. It was local activism. But in a country that prides itself in heroes and kind of where the position of power is assumed by almost demonstration of force and not demonstration of wisdom, I thought that quality of life in the local community deserves more attention than this insistence on the past and kind of the discussions that were occupying political domain that were heavily, I think, dissociated from everyday life. And that was my inspiration. Actually, my very own street was my inspiration. I would hope that it's in some little form trailblazing for women who are thinking about joining politics, for young women who are wondering whether they're good enough, whether they can occupy positions of power, whether there is room at the table for them, whether they have something to contribute, whether their experience is worth sharing, celebrating, and representing. In that sense, I would want to use any little spotlight that I have to kind of direct it to all the women who are wondering these things and to give them a resounding yes, yes, you're good enough, yes, you can do it, yes, you deserve the space and the chair and probably the top chair at the table. Is it the art? Well, politics is the art of, I would say, emancipating. And I know it's not how it's perceived a lot of the times, but I think in divisive times we live in a polarized world, I think perhaps more polarized than in the past decades. I think besides convincing and besides winning elections and besides being good at that game, I think we sometimes forget the emancipatory potential of politics and the empathy to have for those who do not share our worldviews and perhaps gently convince them is something that's overlooked, and I think there is room for it in Europe.